I've spoken about this story a few times, but it's been a little while. It's probably been about a year, and there's been a lot of new subscribers join the channel, and I thought it would be valuable to share my experience in the higher planes and how that worked, seeing my divine master, my teacher, on a higher plane of consciousness through meditation. So I went into meditation one day. In fact, I'm going to bring things back a little bit. I'm going to start at the start where this story really began, and then lead you into and then talk about how this experience unfolded for me. So I'd spoke to my teacher on the phone. This was years back, and I'd said, things have been going pretty well, but I really feel now that I want to push my meditation. I want to break through in as much as I want to know for certain that there's more. I've read all the books. I've heard you talk about the fact that we're spiritual beings. I've seen it all, or read it all, seen it all on videos, but I need my own proof. I need my own certainty now. I feel like I'm ready. I might be wrong, but I feel like I'm ready. And this was over the phone, and he said, "I'll see you on the higher planes." And I laughed it off, and we finished the call and ended it there. And he had said, "I'll see you there on the higher planes." Didn't think anything of it, but I knew my teacher was a divine being, a divine avatar. I've spoken about that many times, but to have this, what I'm about to show you, proof, was quite profound for me. And anyway, I went onto this meditation course, and I was there with one goal and one goal only, which was to push the limits of my mind and push the limits of my consciousness to have a breakthrough, which is really goes against the advice that I would give to anyone, to be honest, because you get tied up if you're not careful then in expectation and in doing meditation for a reward, which goes against pretty much all the teachings that I share. But for whatever reason, I feel as though my intention at that time was pure, in the sense that I wanted to break through, and I had put in the work, and I had done the apprenticeship of meditation, because I've been meditating for so many years by this point. And crucially, I was desperate to teach more and more people. I felt inwardly like it was my dharma to be teaching more people. And I think the combination of me wanting a breakthrough for my own proof, but also to have that certainty for my teaching, led ultimately to this actually coming about. So I went on to this course, and things were going actually really well for the first 7 days. Things were going, in fact, great. I felt like my mind was getting calmer and calmer. In fact, my mind got so still, it was quite unbelievable. I've never ever experienced my mind that still. I mean, it was phenomenal. I could sit there for an hour and meditate, and it would be like the most still lake you've ever seen. Not a single ripple. It was just unbelievable. But that was the nature of not having phones on you, not having books, not being able to talk to people. It leads you to that point. It's very clever that the way that they set up that particular course. So this was all building up, and things were feeling really good, and I was getting to the point where I could move energy around my body very consciously, very easily. I could feel, more than feel, I could move and direct energy at will anywhere in the body with complete clarity. It was again, quite hard to explain. And on the 7th day, we got to the final but one meditation of that day, and I sat down to meditate as normal. I started off just following the breath, and I followed the breath for perhaps 20 seconds, 10, 20, 30 seconds, it's hard to remember now, but not very long at all. And all of a sudden, my eyes were closed obviously, and my hands were in a particular hand position. All of a sudden my legs started to go numb. I was on a kneeling stool, my legs started to go numb. And I thought, that's really weird, I've only just sat down. So I wiggled my toes, and I was like, oh no, I can feel them. I can actually feel them perfectly fine. But then when I left them still and tuned into the breath, I felt this feeling of them going invisible creeping up my legs. And then if I was to move the legs, I was like, I could feel them perfectly. So they weren't going numb because I was sitting funny. They were literally going invisible in my awareness of them. And that feeling began to creep up my legs quite steadily. Simultaneously, my hands, which were in a particular hand position, as I say, started to flicker. And then my eyelids started to flicker rapidly. And as these two things were going on, this energy continued to, or this sense of my legs going invisible continued to rise up my legs. And this energy began to build up, almost as if it was against a gate. And this gate, at some point, after perhaps another 10 seconds or so of this happening, just exploded open. And it felt as if I'd been plugged into the mains electric, quite literally. And this unbelievably, I can't put words on it, this unbelievably powerful energy was pouring through me, absolutely pouring through me. And as that energy released, and it felt like it was going through a pipeline like this, all through my hands, energy and electricity. I could feel the sense of electricity pouring through me. And if I was to move my hands, I could feel that I would either be enhancing the flow or restricting the flow. That came a bit later, but as that all unfolded and this energy poured through me, this feeling of my body going invisible continued and reached the top of my head, where I was then completely out of my body. So as I came out of my body, my consciousness, a bit like a flower just opening up, just opened up and opened up and opened up. And I was then shooting through different planes of existence. And I know this because the experience is so obvious when it's actually happening to you, but I've always struggled to explain this bit, because it'd be like if someone had never been to sleep before. If someone just didn't sleep and you were trying to explain what sleep was like, it's really hard to do it unless you've done it. But anyway, I was shooting through these different planes, and my body was becoming more and more, it just felt purer, it felt more refined, the energy felt cleaner, everything and I was rising and rising and rising, and it reached a point where everything opened up and became pretty much invisible, other than the fact that there was this enormous energy above me. This energy was the most profound, awe-inspiring thing I've ever seen in my entire life, to the extent where I had the feeling as though I wanted to bow down in front of it. It sounds really weird. That might sound really weird, but I really felt as though I was just in complete awe of the sheer size and magnitude of what I was seeing. But not like, if you see a beautiful mountain, you don't want to bow in front of it. This was really different. This thing that I was seeing, it wasn't beautiful in that same way. It was just the size and magnitude of it was just beyond my ability to explain. I just can't explain it. But I felt so in awe that I felt as though I had to bow down. And all this process felt as though it took maybe 5 minutes. Before I knew it, the meditation had finished. And in fact, there's a little bit more to it, because through that meditation, as I was rising and rising and rising, I started to get a little bit concerned as to how I could come back into my body. So I found that I could come back into my body right away. If I thought of my body, I was in my body. But to begin with, I would think of my body and I'd be in my body, and I'd come into the body with a real big jolt. So I had to then practice coming in and out of my body slowly, because I was in a hall in complete silence with about, 80 people maybe. So if I was making a big fuss and just like sort of making, jerking into my body every time, it just disrupt other people. It would just be really weird. So I had to practice coming in and out of my body smoothly. And I also had this, you could call it a problem. It was just a distraction, which was that my mouth was filling up with saliva so quickly that I was worried I was going to choke, because I'd go into these states of meditation and time would just vanish. It'd be like, time would be slipping through my hands like water just pouring through your fingers. It was like what felt like 30 seconds would be 20, 30 minutes. It was just ridiculous. But I kept having to come into my body to check that this saliva that was filling up in my mouth wasn't making me choke. And in the end, it was filling up so quickly that I had to actually lean forward and allow this saliva to just stream out of my mouth. So that had gone on, and what I came to realise after a little bit of time, it took a few days actually. In fact, it took a phone call for me to get the confirmation, but that energy that I was aware of in front of me and was in awe of actually turned out to be my teacher. And that's going to sound very quite unbelievable to many of you, I'm sure, but that actually turned out to be, or at least an aspect of my teacher. I'm not even going to say that was his form. I don't think it was his form, but I think that was a tiny part of him. If you're an avatar, you're one with everything. You are everything, and that was, not everything. So it must have been just a bit of him. But after this course, which went on for another few days, in fact, I'll tell you the following couple of days. So after that, I didn't know whether this would be something that I could repeat or not, or whether this was just one of those one-off experiences and it was done and dusted and that's it. Back to normal meditations. But it turns out it wasn't. The next meditation, as soon as I sat down, followed the breath, bang, I was straight up. Next morning, sat down, followed the breath, bang, straight up into this higher plane. And it happened like this for the next then 2, 3, 4 days, whatever it was. I could just follow the breath and I'd be in another plane of consciousness, another plane of existence. And it would happen so quickly. And what I came to realise was that the energy that had been released, which was obviously Kundalini, was still very much in my system. So as soon as I then sat down to meditate in the mornings or around that time, that energy that was used to expand my consciousness was there and ready to go. So it was easy for me to just tap in. That's what I came to realise over time. But it became a little bit frightening because I had no idea what had gone on at this time. I had no idea why when I went to sleep at night, I wasn't going to sleep. I was going into a different state of consciousness. I was going into a meditation and spending 7 or 8 hours in a aware state. I didn't know why I still had electricity, and energy in fact, pouring through my body for 4 or 5 days after that. And why I was walking around and I could look at my hand and I could feel strands of electricity coming off of my hands, coming off of my fingers. So it became a little bit frightening, especially when you can't talk to anyone. And you're starting to think, have I done something wrong? Have I tapped into something now that I wasn't quite ready for? Or what's going on here? Anyway, when I came off of the course, you get your phone again. And the very first person that I called was my teacher. I thought, I've got to speak to him. I need to know what's going on. I need to know what the hell is happening to me because this is getting weird. So I got him on the phone and he answers the phone and I said, "Hi, it's Ben." And he was laughing when he answered the phone, or when I said hello. And he just said, "We had a great time up there, didn't we?" Didn't say hello, didn't say, "How you doing? What you up to? Where are you?" We had a great time up there, didn't we? I hadn't told anyone what had happened at this point because I didn't have my phone. I hadn't got the option to. I told the people on the course who on day 10 we were allowed to speak to, but I hadn't told any family or friends or anything like that. And yeah, we had a great time up there, didn't we? And then he began to explain what had actually happened, and I didn't even really clock what had happened, but he gently told me that I had passed through into higher planes and that we were in his words, a very high plane of consciousness. I have no idea which one it was. Doesn't really matter. And I also had other things happen, I had beings coming into my consciousness over the coming days and things like this, which was getting confusing. I was walking around just the retreat hall and I'd see a being literally in front of me, and then it would vanish again. And he basically said, well, your consciousness had changed so much that it was interacting with beings on the other side, so you were able to see them quite naturally and things like this. So it was just a mind-blowing experience. But the beauty of that experience and what that gave me, it gave me certainty. I knew for a fact that we are of light. We are beings of light. We're not physical beings. This is not my form. This is a vehicle. This is not my name. This is just a temporary label. And the same is for you. You are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your name. The job that you have is temporary. The family and friends that you have, as beautiful as they are, hopefully, are temporary. But you are a being of light, and you're here to have a human experience, but you're also here to find truth. My teacher made it clear to me. He said, you've been here and I assumed it's for pretty much all of us. You've been here for a long time, and he basically said that we'd been taking our time working back to truth. You know, you're taking your time about it, so this is why as avatars have to come back occasionally and set you on the right path again and point you in the way. Come on, it's that way. What are you messing about at? So he kind of said that, and I want that to pass over to you as well. I want you to know that you are a being of light. You're here, yes, partly to have experience and to experience having a body, experience being able to smell and being able to feel the cold, being able to eat, all things that we can't do in light form in the same way. But you are also here to find who you are. You're also here to find truth, to return to the home that you came from, which is God, which is the divine. And there are certain means and ways that you can do that, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's mantra. There's different tools and different frameworks and things that you can follow in order to return to what you really are. And we're all on this journey, and my channel hopefully is there to help you. And as I learn, as I grow, as I learn things, I share them on the channel, and we can all move back slowly together. So I hope the video has been valuable. If you do need help, more so than what you see on the channel, then you're welcome to check out my school. The link's in the description. I've actually made a new course recently. It's called The Way of Divine Meditation. As the name suggests, all centered around meditating with the single goal of connecting with the divine more and more deeply. So feel free to check that out if that's of interest. But failing that, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot.